Okay, everybody, you saw the title card, you know what this is. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. Starting us off is Scrapper. We're starting in vehicle mode. Basically, there's not a lot different here, except for the fact that it's a lighter paint scheme, a couple different paint decal, bits. You have the Decepticon logo there in the scoop. You can store his weapon in vehicle mode. This is the hand blaster. These are exclusive as of right now to the Takara Unite Warriors version. If you so desire, as we know from the Hasbro version, the winged blades thingamabobs are supposed to be his weapons, and where the pegs are for the hold as a weapon or to peg into the chest, there are these little holes, and if you can use those holes on these back pegs to go ahead and you can peg them into the vehicle mode just like so, and you can recreate the G1 armored vehicle mode because the original Scrapper came with the chest plate and that would just sit on. I think really that this is one of the few of the Constructicons that can do this just because of the pegging and what have you. Now it's interesting that the pegs were there. Um, so maybe that these weapons were originally included, but other than that, that's really about it for the vehicle mode. Let's get to the robot mode. Here's Scrapper in robot mode. Besides the paint, the big addition here, as you can see as I'm demonstrating on the arms, is that it now has elbows. This was something that the mold was there. For whatever reason, Hasbro left it out. The reason I've left this arm straight is I do want to demonstrate something that I feel is very important, and that's the fact that the elbows actually lock into place for vehicle mode and limb mode, and they're very, very tight. What I suggest is getting your hand in like that, and here, I was talking, so here you hear that big snap. This one has loosened up a little. This one here is still a little tight. As you saw, you can hold the blades like they show you holding it like some double bladed thing. Personally, I don't really use the Devastator pieces as weapons. I just stick with their basic blasters, and that's a little more accurate to the original figure. Other than that, I really like it. I think it's cool. The elbows definitely make a great addition. And as you'll see in limb mode, by locking the elbows, there is no stability issues. For leg mode, we're focusing on the lower half because there is something I want you to see. I've seen a couple reviews of the Hasbro Devastator, and I haven't noticed this mentioned. Yuki and the instructions for Unite Warriors make a point of mentioning this. You want to make sure that you rotate the forearms around, that the fist wells are facing upward, and then you're going to rotate them all the way out and flat. Now, when rotating them, there are locking points on each arm, but the other step is by rotating the fists out, and then, to be honest, I never noticed it until I did this. There are these flat triangle pieces. These are heel pieces. This is a very flat and very secure leg mode because of the elbows locking. Um, I cannot see any stability issues with this figure going down the line unless, even if one of the tabs that locks the elbows in place um, happens to break or wear down, because you have this extra heel support, I would say that the weight would just hold it all in place. And also keep in mind, you're not going to be getting too crazy with Devastator. And here's Mixmaster, and as a child, I actually think this was my favorite member of the Constructicons, just because of the whole mixing thing. As you want, first right off the bat, you want to see the big difference between the Hasbro and Takara versions, just by natural, you know, um, muscle memory. This is how I have it set up as the front of the vehicle. That's because of this new paint job here, making this look like a front cab and grille. The weapon can peg in on top. There were these little pegs here originally to hold the G1 weapon. Unfortunately, um, there isn't any of the Devastator pieces can peg in. But as you'll see in robot mode, they did find a way to keep that little extra um, weapon integration. Now here is the original Hasbro front end, as you can see, and it I don't know if they changed the paint, but this really looks more like a rear end now. But just for completionist sake, this is technically supposed to be the proper front end, but I pulled it out of the box. I immediately put it like this, and this is how I've been displaying it. Okay, now in robot mode, besides the enhanced paint deco, the big change here to Mixmaster is Takara went and people say they redid the elbows. Personally, from looking this figure over, I think this is how the elbows were originally designed. That you have this inner piece right here, which I have bent on this arm. This is meant to be the elbow. Now here on this arm, as I have it holding this the middle chest piece, which is it's assigned limb weapon, you can see I just have it being bent at this pin right here. Now, personally, I think this is actually meant for transformation for the leg mode, which we'll look at and it'll be a little more clear. Other than that, this is basically, in terms of mold-wise, similar to the Hasbro version. And if you notice here at the top of the head, um, they did integrate, if you remember on the original toy, there was like this spring-loaded missile double barrel thing that was supposed to be able to shoot out his little concoctions from the mixing drum, since that whole section is connected. Um, yeah, other than that, I think it's a really cool update. Now let's look at leg mode. And here's leg mode now. As I mentioned, those what were the original elbows on the Hasbro version, as you can see, are meant to bend backwards. That's why I think this is a real transformation joint, because in doing so you have to bend them to free up the ankle tilt. Um, Other than that, there's really none of the enhancements have changed the stability of the leg, which is very good. You have this extra secure, solid heel piece. The foot here is very flat and wide. All in all, this really is a good leg mode, and I'm very curious, and I like how it does combine. I mean, we're focusing down just because there's nothing new up here from, say, the Hasbro version. I mean, this is all going to connect and peg in the same way. Okay, and now we're taking a look at Hook. Again, like a lot of the other Constructicons, there's really no big structural difference for Hook in vehicle mode, except for the fact that you can, of course, peg his hand weapon into um, the side of the crane here. That tab was there. And I actually, out of all of them, I think this is one of my favorites, if not my favorite, because I do like just how it looks. They got that clip there, the little machine gun with the scope. And I kind of like Hook's personality in the cartoon. I thought, because all of them were very smart, scientific-wise, whereas I think in later presentations, the Constructicons were shown as being a little bit on the brutish, thuggish side. But other than that, the crane can move up and down. I was really hoping they would find some way to get it to telescope, but that's about it for the vehicle mode. Let's look at robot mode. And here's the robot mode. Now, one thing I haven't been mentioning is while technically the Constructicons are Voyager class, a lot of them aren't as big as like the Voyager class figures you can buy individually off the shelves. Hook, though, is a little bit taller and bulkier in both vehicle and robot mode, so I think it was just a split. Now, for robot mode, the big difference to Hook, much like Mixmaster, is Takara went ahead and altered the elbow design. And basically what they did is the same thing by adding in this piece right here, which again, I think this was meant to be the proper elbow joint. And whereas this piece right here, which is what Hasbro's elbow would bend on, is really just meant for transformation when forming the chest mode, which we'll see in a few minutes. Um, I think in terms of how it looks, I think just because of the way the arms are laid out, it's better just to use this elbow than go for a 90-degree bend, because it does then begin to look a little broken. Mixmaster at least had the the little canisters on the arms that would help, keep things looking a little less broken. Other than that, the only alteration to transformation that I've done is I do rotate his head around when going from vehicle mode to robot, from robot mode to vehicle mode, whereas in the instructions and in the packaging, the head is facing out. And here's Hook in chess mode. And one thing right off the bat I want to make a point of mentioning is when you're going to bend this part around, transform the don't tran if you're in robot mode, don't transform the legs back. If you're in vehicle mode, open up the legs, grab it from the hip because of the way the ball joints are. There's a tendency to put that it will bend the hips and pull the hips instead of pulling it from the waist. It's like the plastic will bend and you can break it. So it's just a lot easier to get a better grip. So you can bend it out and bring it together. And as you can see, it does come together quite nicely. Really, the only major difference in this mode, and this is actually somewhat of a big one, is the head of Devastator. Um, the original Hasbro version has the eyes here, which we have seen before, and then the San Diego one had the visor. Well, Takara went ahead and basically you can flip this piece up. And it does go up all the way. I want to make you a point of that. When I first got it, it was like staying right around here, and I was having a hard time getting my thumb in. But it does flip all the way up, and you can go ahead and flip down the visor, which was I think shown a lot in the cartoon, and you can flip it down. So you can have your two different versions of Devastator, which I think is really cool. Not a lot of new parts, just to do it, just modifying that little flip piece there. I was kind of disappointed Hasbro didn't do that, but they really didn't do a lot in terms of the figure. Other than that, here you have the rest of the chest piece. They actually show you for going into the torso, you want the arms folded like that. This is that Hasbro elbow joint, and again, as you can see, I feel that it's definitely meant to be as a transformation joint, especially the way that these things connect in and come down. Before we get into the rest of the figures, just want to take a little moment and show off the little extra accoutrements here. Um, this is the Hasbro Asia release, so of course I did get the collector's card, and it's the chest panel of Devastator. That opens up. It's real nice. You get these even side parts flip up, and here you have the coin. Now, the original listing said coins. I thought I'd be getting 6 coins for each Constructicon and then 1 for Devastator, but all it is the one here for Devastator showing off the head with the visor down, which I think is kind of cool. Let me see if I can cut down the glare there so you can see it a little better. But there's the big guy himself. That's kind of cool. The next thing I got, well, and it's with the instructions, is with their Unite Warrior line, they do nice little drawings, and this one's been talked about a bit. You do have its Crystal City, rebuilding Crystal City. You have Grapple, Hoist, or I may have that reversed, and then you have Hauler here, which is the long forgotten seventh Constructicon. But there's a whole story there. But right here in the corner, you have an adult Chip Chase, which I think is kind of cool. Omega Supreme. I really like these little cutesy drawings for each bag. I wouldn't mind seeing it done larger in maybe like a poster size. But one little complaint about these instructions, I do like that they're booklets instead of a sheet because they don't take up that much space. But the printing is very small, and it does make it very difficult to read sometimes and see what's going where and what have you. I just want to mention real quick that the reason I didn't show Hook holding the Devastator module weapon is either the peg on the weapon, which is the front barrel of the blaster, or his hands had just a little too much paint on it, and it was going a little too tightly for my taste, and I didn't like forcing it in and out. But this is long haul, and I have to say, long haul is big. It's hefty. He's got a lot of weight to it, even without the weapons here on top. And this is really, I would say, one of the true Voyager class figures in the set. I mean, it's big, it's bulky. I mean, it's really chunky. You'll see in robot mode, it's a chubby little robot. It does have a storage right here for its weapon, which is much larger than any of the other Constructicons, and it tabs right in. But the nice thing about long haul is Since the Constructicons come with their G1 weapons, and this was already designed in the Hasbro version, it can hold all of the components to finish off Devastator. You have the central chest piece here, which is a two-handed blaster. You have the front, you can, and it pegs in. You can just take it right out, just like so. Um, you have the larger blaster for Devastator here, the rear section. You have the small uh, front barrel, which is the one that Hook was supposed to use. And these do peg in quite securely. This one I'm not that worried about. The hole is kind of nice. You just got to go in there. But, there's that. And then it's like, you have the two forearm pieces, which, which peg in right here. You got to use the, basically with these, you have to use the hand pegs that are there. So, that's kind of nice. And then, of course, the wings just clip in. But even removing them, you still have a very hefty, and I want to stress that, hefty figure, but that rolls quite nicely. And here's long haul and robot mode. Again, the big difference here is Takara went ahead and reconfigured the elbow system, whereas actually giving him a proper elbow that bends forward. This elbow, if you remember, was more like a side to side sort of thing, so you had like a little bit of a, the dumbbell curls. That I think is really for just for transformation and moving things out of the way. But as you can see, he's got the biggest blaster, the G1 blasters, and he's using the biggest Devastator module. This is a big, chunky, and it's like really solid. One thing I definitely want to point out is this whole entire area, which is basically will be the lower torso, knees of Devastator. Tight ratchet joints, very secure. Just, you might have to use it two hands when moving things around just to get things into order, but it is a really massive, massive figure. Okay, and here's long haul in the torso mode. One thing I forgot to mention is this little black section that's painted behind on the lip of the dump truck. That's actually to simulate when the robot mode head is flipped up, the black frame that was around it. I think that's actually really kind of cool. You can see as we're starting to get into like really big sections now, but everything's tight and solid. There is one little thing I didn't show, but I will get to before we get into Devastator, that there are posts here. You can actually combine all the G1 weapons and plug them in, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. Okay, and here's Scavenger, and really, again, there's not much different here in vehicle mode. He does have the G1 weapon that can peg in quite nicely. Now, if you remember the original toy, it had the forearm guards that were the spring-loaded, and unfortunately, there's really no way, I don't think they can peg in here in any type of to recreate that. But one thing I do like is the hook is the scoop, I should say, is rather articulated. You don't have the joint here at the bottom, but it does move around. But that was there on the Hasbro version. Now let's go ahead and take a look at robot mode. Here's Scavenger in its robot mode. As you can see, I have it holding the forearm. It's this multiple missile launcher type of thing. Kind of snugly in the hand, so I just want to take that out. Makes it a little easier. The big thing now with the change from Takara is they redid how the knees work. You actually have like a proper knee joint that doesn't look like it's breaking the leg. I mean, it's still there. You have that front kneecap. Um, so, I mean, you do have that going on. Really don't know how much of a change that's going to make to the figure. You can see it does help bend it out, but other than that, they also did make the hip joints a little tighter. I remember that being a issue. I mean, nothing's really popped off except for the shoulder when transforming it, but that's because the joint here is kind of tight. But other than that, it's just a solid figure, and like the legs, a little bit smaller than what I would say is a Voyager. Okay, and here's Scavenger in arm mode. Not much different, except that they did change the joint here. It is a ratchet joint, so it will help hold the poses that the arm won't, swing out or drop down or anything like that. And you do have a lot of that going on. So, I just swung the arm out. But yeah, that I mean, just that is a nice little touch they were able to work in, and I can understand why Hasbro didn't include it. And here's Bone Crusher. A lot like a Scavenger in terms of the transformation, but I just like that name, Bone Crusher. And much like the other figures, he does have the weapon storage right there for his G1 style weapon. And again, comes with another, supposed to use one of these limb modules, but I see really no way to clip it on. But um, the big change, there, you can actually see it here in vehicle mode, is how they painted the inside of his treads to match Scavengers. I think that's kind of cool and really breaks up the bright neon green. Other than that, there's really not much here to vehicle mode. And here's Bone Crusher in robot mode. Very lanky, like him and Scavenger, I would say, are very lanky. And much like Scavenger, he does have the new knee joints. Um, and I have to say, especially on him, the hips, they're hard to get together, but once they are, they do stay. Of course, now they're gonna pop open, and you can get some interesting little poses now with these better knee joints. Other than that, it's the same paint design and what have you, and of course the G1 blaster right here. He also can hold the other limb module, but I really see no point in showing that off. Okay, and here's just Bone Crusher in its arm mode, and much like Scavenger, it does have that ratcheting joint right there. You do have to move the shoulder pad out of the way to take advantage of it, but it is nice that it's there, and that's a nice little touch that Takara put in. As I mentioned, here's the G1 weapons pegged together and that they can store in the back of Long Haul, pegging basically the main central guns will peg into the sections, the pegs where the forearm arm modules were. Basically, the main parts here are this is Long Haul's blaster and then Scrapper's blaster, and then everything just pegs into it just like that. I wanted to find a special way to show just how awesome and massive Devastator is. So, borrowing from the Old Spice commercials, it's on a giraffe. Yep, Devastator's riding a giraffe. Your argument is invalid. I think a little dynamic pose to end our review here. Devastator is awesome, and whichever version you get, I would say this really was the toy of 2015 because this was something that came out of left field, and I saw that the cab there on Scavenger popped up. That's my fault, just because handling it. Um, I want to just say just how super tight everything locks together. Because for those of you who don't remember, the original G1 Devastator, um, like Hook and Long Haul, they combined together. But everybody else, there was like extra combination parts that it would peg into. And then, of course, Bone Crusher and Scavenger pegged into Hook. So they had to figure out a way to combine all those extra combining bits into the figure since they were going to just do it as a standalone. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with what they came out with. I mean, the figure's huge. This chest piece, the way it locks in across, that's awesome. The legs themselves, I think that's really like the best part. But now comes the big question: what do you get? Unite Warriors, which is here, or or the Hasbro Devastator. If price is an issue, then I have to say go with Hasbro's Devastator. It is much cheaper. Also keep in mind because you'd have to be paying for shipping. The next point is how are you going to display this figure? If you're going to display it as the 6 Constructicons, then go with the Unite Warriors set. Just because there's more to the individual robot modes with the G1 weapons, the extra joints, that once you have Devastator together is kind of lost. Um, if you're going to display it as Devastator, then go for the Hasbro version because basically once he's in this Super Mama Jama mode, the elbows on Scrapper aren't an issue. the extra knees on Bone Crusher and Scavenger, the elbows on Mixmaster and Hook and Long Haul, they're really not a point because everything's locked up tight. And, like I said, you have the weapons there stored in the back. So that's about it. I really hope this review helped to show the main differences that Unite Warriors has done. I'm happy I have this. I mean, this is going to be great. This is my first Titan class figure. I had to pass on Metroplex, due to the size and all, but definitely, if you're doing some last minute holiday shopping or looking to spend some Christmas cash, you really can't go wrong with this guy. This is your old pal Chuck. I might have one more review up before Christmas. If I don't, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll definitely speak to you again before the new year.